This video is all about what I think is the most important type of workout for runners, and that is the tempo run. I want you to do more tempo workouts because you're gonna end up being a lot better for it. First, what exactly is a tempo run? A tempo run is also known as a lactate threshold workout or a threshold workout. It's essentially a workout done at your 1 hour race pace. Or if you're into heart rate, it's probably about 85 to 90% of your maximum. Now, the reason why the tempo run is so valuable for runners, why I want you to do more of these types of workouts, is because the pace zone that you're running when you do a tempo workout is the fastest pace that you can aerobically run. So it's that zone where your body's producing all this lactate, you're starting to feel uncomfortable, but it is relatively sustainable. It's actually the fastest pace that you can run while still clearing all that lactate. And that is where all the magic happens. So let's figure out how to calculate your tempo pace so that when you go and try to do a tempo workout, you know what intensity to target when you're out there running. So first things first, let's recognize that tempo pace is aerobic. You should not be working anaerobically. Remember, it's that zone right before you go anaerobic. So for a lot of runners, you know, if we're using your 1 hour race pace, it's typically between your 10K and your half marathon race pace. So it's not terribly difficult, but it's also not easy. It's not a pace that you can run for 2 hours or more. It's a somewhat sustainable pace. A lot of coaches will describe it as comfortably hard. So if 1 hour race pace is not doing it for you, let's use heart rate. Let's use about 85 to 90% of your maximum heart rate. And of course, let's remember to get an accurate max heart rate reading. You don't want to use a wrist sensor, and you certainly don't want to use the old 220 minus your age formula. That's not going to be very accurate. So if you know what pace to run, now let's talk about, well, what kind of workouts can we plug this pace into? Some of my favorite workouts are the classic tempo runs, where you're just going out there for 20 minutes, 25, maybe 30 or 35 minutes at a time at your tempo pace. I actually did a 20-minute tempo run just last weekend with a friend of mine, and this was embedded within a 12-mile long run. Wonderful endurance building session, something that I think all runners will benefit from. And if you are regularly exposing yourself to this zone of effort, this lactate threshold pace, what you're doing is you're really allowing your body to get very good at buffering lactate. You're really allowing your body to get efficient at both clearing lactate from your muscles and your bloodstream and also using lactate as fuel. It's not the best fuel. It's not really going to help us, too much, but it is a fuel that we can use when we start producing too much of it. But our body gets so good at clearing that lactate that over time, we can start running faster and faster before we go into oxygen debt. So for anyone who wants to run a faster race, whether you're targeting a 5K or a marathon, this ability to run a faster pace before you get into oxygen debt is crucial. This is like the #1 skill we want as runners. We want to run as fast as possible while still running aerobically. I could not make these videos without your support. So first, let me say thank you. And this video is brought to you by our very own performance training journal. I have always been in love with hard copy training journals for a few really good reasons. Number one, when I was a new runner and I started keeping an actual training journal like this, I learned so much more about the sport and myself just by that practice. It really forces you to reflect on your training, to think more deeply about what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And if you are constantly reflecting on your training, praising yourself for what's going right, planning for the future, and then looking back on what has previously worked for you, you are gonna really know yourself as a runner, and you're gonna start to make wiser decisions about your training. I also created this training journal because I want you to focus on the training metrics that actually matter. The training metrics that help you improve, get better, and progress with your running. We don't have to focus on everything. We just need to focus on what matters. I also took a lot of inspiration from professional runners that I've talked to on the Strength Running podcast. They're adamant by completing a training journal and reflecting on what works for you and actually giving yourself some praise within your journal. You're essentially completing a gratitude journal. You are building up your confidence in your own abilities over time. And when you look back on that journal before a big goal race, you are going to be reading in your own words why you're capable, why you can do this. And I can think of nothing more confidence building than an act like that. So I hope you check out the new performance training journal. It is now available on Amazon. It debuted as the #4 new release in the running category, and I could not be more proud of it. So thank you again for subscribing to the Strength Running YouTube channel, and I hope you enjoy the performance training journal. Some other great tempo workouts for runners include fartleks. Fartlek workouts are absolutely fantastic, and I love them because they're so versatile. You can do 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 5 or 10-minute repetitions at your tempo pace with a 1 to 2 minute recovery. Usually tempo runs have a short recovery because you still want to keep those levels of blood lactate relatively high, because after all, we're teaching your body to clear and use that lactate. We never want to fully clear it and take these long, 4-minute recoveries in between our tempo paced repetitions. So let's keep the recovery jogs relatively short, maybe 60 to 90 seconds, 2 minutes on the high end, and that's really going to allow your body to stay in that high lactate scenario. You can also run mile repetitions at your lactate pace, and again, keep it to about a 60 to 90 second recovery. And these workouts are all fantastic. Whether you choose the fartlek version, you're doing the mile reps, maybe you're doing that more steady effort over time, just remember to start with the easier version. So let's start with maybe 6 by 2 minutes at a tempo effort. Something like that is a really good introductory type of workout for tempo running. Then you can move to mile repetitions and then do more sustained efforts over time. Now, the thing about tempo pace is that all these workouts, these are very physiological workouts. The pace is not based on what you've done in a race scenario. The pace is based on your physiology, what is happening internally in your body when you're running at this effort. And so what that means is you really shouldn't go too hard. I would much rather you be a little bit too slow than a little bit too fast. Because if you're too fast, you're anaerobic. You're producing way too much lactate. Your body doesn't have the it's just too quick. You're producing more lactate than you can clear and use for fuel, and you end up just defeating the purpose of the workout. So when in doubt, be a little bit conservative, err on the cautious side, and slow down your tempo runs. Now, this also means that tempo runs are very dependent upon your fatigue levels, your levels of caffeination, and even the weather. Right now, it's a beautiful day in Denver. I'm sure it looks like that. It's actually 96 degrees right now, and I'm really struggling. I'm probably pouring sweat here. It's a little warm, but the show must go on. But if I were out here doing a tempo run, my pace would be dramatically slower than if it was a cool, crisp day with low humidity and I could really focus on executing that workout. So just be aware that your tempo workouts will be affected by how sore you are, how tired you are, how hydrated you are, and all those factors that can contribute to your performance on any given day. So just realize that it could be slower than what is ideal, and that's okay, because we're basing these workouts on what is happening literally in your bloodstream and muscles. It's not based on what you've done in a race situation. All right, runners, that is why you should be doing more tempo runs. I think this is one of the most important workouts for runners. I think it is so valuable at increasing our endurance, helping us run faster while still being able to run aerobically. So if you're not started with tempo runs yet, get started this week. They're a great workout for almost any time of the season because they're still aerobic and they won't contribute to burnout or overtraining. Have fun with them. Get out there, let's run fast.